Hello? Yes, yes.
Hey.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. I am Bertie from Eurogamer, and you have joined us all for a very special live Eurogamer podcast where anything can happen while you're here interacting with us, almost like a video game. I am joined by a collection of some Eurogamer writers and also some developers, more importantly. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves so you can hear their voices and see them speak at the same time. So I'm going to start with the wonderful Ed Stern on the end, and I've introduced him, but I'll let him take it from here.
I am the wonderful Ed Stern. I'm writer-designer at Splash Damage. I worked on the Enemy Territory games and Brink, and just finished on Arkham Origins multiplayer, and we're back to doing first-person shooters with Extraction.
Okay. I don't want to say his name in case I... Let's have a round of applause.
Oh! No, sorry. Can we go for that again? Can we go for a real kind of like par golf ripple? Just like, oh, finally he's done it. Just again. Thank you. I'm now being invited to get a facial. Actually, we're quite facial hair heavy, aren't we?
Well, the real beards grow in your heart.
It's a beard off.
They grow in your heart.
It's a beard off.
They don't grow in your face.
So, mystery guest number 2.
My name is Rami Ismail. I'm one half of Dutch independent studio Vlambeer, and we're best known for Ridiculous Fishing and our upcoming game, Wasteland Kings / Nuclear Throne.
Did you just do that?
I just announced that.
Just switched it.
Just now.
Nice.
Right.
Hey, yeah.
If we're going to have to go for every time, can somebody get like one of those signs with applause in here?
I was going to make one, but I didn't have time, so that's my excuse.
I got a good feeling. I think I'm going to get spontaneous applause. No, I don't.
Mystery guest
please
number
wait
3.
for 3 seconds after Mike is done introducing.
Okay, let's go for the tumbleweed on this one.
I'm Mike Bithell. I made Thomas Was Alone, which is a massively overrated platformer. I'm now working on the disappointing follow-up volume. Here we are. Thank you. You couldn't stop them.
Mystery guest number 4.
Hi, I'm John Robbins. We're doing Ollie Ollie, which is a 2D super hard skateboarding game for PlayStation Vita.
Mystery guest number 5.
I'm Wesley Yin Paul. I'm Eurogamer's news editor. I'm not making a video game, but I do write about them. And you can check all that out on Eurogamer.net.
And mystery guest number 6.
Good counting skills, Bertie. I'm Martin Robinson. I'm Eurogamer's features editor, and that's all I've got to say for myself.
So we are here today to talk about independent development, which has become quite popular in the last couple of years. There's more to the world than Call of Duty, but what I was interested...
this now?
He didn't get the memo? Can somebody update
I
him?
didn't read this at all.
Do you read Eurogamer?
Oh dear.
It's nothing. It's fine.
Let me grab that for you.
Thank you.
There you go.
So I wanted to find out really. We'll start with the independent developers, and then smaller budget games, I suppose, and then we'll
Thinner.
Yeah. I wanted to find out what being independent or what being indie means to you guys. When you hear that word, what does it mean to be indie? And I guess let's start in reverse order. So we'll start with John.
Yikes. I think it gives you the opportunity maybe to be more experimental, to kind of engage with, or like be able to have an idea that's maybe slightly left field, slightly ridiculous, and be able to kind of roll with that and see if there's an audience out there who want to play that, rather than having to do something that's definitely, it's the controls you expect, it's the story you expect. Yeah.
Do you feel, is there pressure to be experimental because you're indie?
I think we liked to think we were really experimental, and then coming to shows like this and seeing people play something that's really experimental makes you realize that you actually need to be experimental and accessible. You spend a lot of time going, oh no, you're doing it wrong. That really opaque thing I put in there that you totally don't get, let me explain that to you. So I think it's a balance.
Actually, before I ask another developer, I wanted to, Wesley, as a writer, when you see the tag indie, what comes like to your head? what do you think that evokes? What are you?
Notch. Well, it used to be. I think that was the thing, right? It was Notch, and I don't know. Did he popularise indie? Did he
No, I
make
think
thing?
that happened way before that.
He made a lot of money, though. I mean,
He
he was very
did.
busy. He was very big and visible, wasn't he?
He does.
Monetized
He
indie.
flies private jets and stuff.
does,
No,
bless him.
I think indie really started to become a thing back in the early days of Xbox Live Arcade when games like Braid and Super Meat Boy came out. I think before that there are definite indications of something like this happening because if you look at the rise of indie as a thing, you're actually looking at things like digital distribution, easy ways to stay in touch with people, easy ways for people to broadcast their message or their thoughts to a lot of people. So if you're talking about the rise of indie, what you're looking at is the rise of digital distribution, the rise of Twitter, the rise of Facebook, of all the things that are now sort of staples for the indie scene almost. So I think that you can sort of see indie slowly creeping into the games industry back in the days of Cave Story and the early Xbox Live Arcade games, and then slowly popularize until at some point it hit a point where the games got to a level where it was also interesting to write about them, I think.
So what was that moment? What do you think that was? I mean, I've got my own ideas, but what do you think that was?
I think that's really hard to say because the question also implies that there is such a thing as indie. And I say that with like air quotes around it because indie is not one thing. It's a spectrum of things ranging from really small experimental twine games all the way up to the bigger indie games like a Fez or a Spelunky or even larger than that. And there's a really wide variety there that deals with a lot of things in highly different ways. If you look at experimental game developer Michael Brough, Smestorp here in the UK, he makes tiny little games with a really stark aesthetic that most people would describe as inaccessible. But that are wonderful, highly intricate games that are really easy to lose yourself in. Like recently, he released Hack 868 for iOS. While on the other end, you have people like Jonathan Blow working on The Witness, which is an overwhelmingly beautiful game that gets announced on the stage for PlayStation 4. So
when do you think a game stops being classed as indie in terms of size? Because Splash Damage, so you're an independent studio.
Yeah.
You're not owned by anyone, but you work on bigger games that you wouldn't class.
Well, that's
as
what it
indie
used to. I mean, it's odd that for a medium that's so technology and jargon ridden, we're actually really low. And for an area that's got so much academic interest, we're really low on terminology, and it's lagging terribly. It used to mean you're not owned by a first-party developer, so you're not owned outright by PlayStation or Nintendo or Sony, and you're not owned by a publisher. And what's happened, because I'm the old, no one's ever been older than me, ever. I'm the oldest anyone's ever been. And when I joined the industry in the late 1420s, there was, the terrain was so different. The only way you could play our game is by having a physical copy of it, which you probably bought off a shelf, and somebody had to distribute it there, and there were vans and lorries and shops and so on. And then we invented televisions, and it got much easier. But then, there were these huge, there were loads more publishers. There were these mega publishers, and there were medium-sized publishers, and there were loads of developers who were there when that genre was invented. And the slightly traumatic thing for me is to think back of, when I think of a big studio, it's like, oh yeah, Trilobyte. Oh man, they've been out of business for years now. Like Splash Damage had this ambition. We wanted to be the biggest indie first-person shooter developer in the UK. That got a lot easier when all the rest closed down. And it was like the biggest in Europe. It's like, no, they're all bought out as well. So partly by luck and partly by luck, we've ended up still being indie, but that term's changed completely. And now it's about a certain aesthetic. And that's changed over time. Because now when we started off, everyone was using the Quake 3 engine, like modders and industry alike. That was the cutting edge of technology, dear God. But now we've got this weird lag where, you can make an 8-bit game or a 16-bit game, and that's a totally valid aesthetic choice. Like FTL, a game I absolutely adore. If that had come out 5 years ago, the graphics just would have been bad. it wouldn't have been, oh, what a great retro aesthetic choice. And it's one of the most exciting things now is that the barriers to entry are so low. And we get game. I mean, I think it's fascinating that how many transgender game developers there are. That is thrilling to me. No, like if 10 years ago someone had said, by the way, in 10 years' time, people will be making incredibly ironic, hyper-violent 8-bit games, and they'll be and you know these transgender people you don't know anything about. They will be explaining their condition to you via the medium of games. Just to pick one out, a developer called Elaguro, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, made a game called Problematic, which is a brilliant name for a game. And so it uses the form of an 8-bit platformer, and it's a game, I think, it's very, what's the word, expressionist, abstract game. I think it's about fitting in and not fitting in. And there's times you think, oh, I know what I'm doing, I'm playing a platformer, and then the whole landscape just rejects you. And you go, oh, wait, I seem to be falling. Oh, something else is going, oh, this seems to be going, oh, hang on, those things that used to be enemies now seem to be friends. So it's using the language of a platformer to create an incredibly specific, authored emotional state. That's an incredible thing for a game to do. And it doesn't have to be this huge AAA action, the conventional modern action shooty game. It's a million miles from that, but we still call it a game. And it's an indie game. It's considerably indier than some. But
so we have in the indie space obviously some massive breakout hits like Minecraft is the one that everyone maybe looked at and then took notice. So potentially there's a lot more money to be made. There's a lot more personal recognition because it's normally one or two people's project for like classic, I suppose, stereotypical indie games. So why work on these AAA games? And if there's all this freedom and all this potential reward there in indie games, I guess the answer would be because it's really tough working on your own and there's barely any security when you're doing it yourself. And going along that line, I wanted to find out just how hard it was and whether there have been any really tough times, because we see the finished product on the floor and people go, wow, that's good. But, there's a lot that goes into that. So I guess, Mike, we'll start with you. Have there been tough times and, how tough does it get?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say as well is actually just to criticise the question because it's fun to. There's lots of people who work on AAA games because they really want to make AAA games, and that's absolutely fair enough.
Definitely.
There's some of the greatest game developers I've ever met work and love working on massive teams.
I mean, no, but
Ed does too.
It's a valid thing, though. The sort of perceived dichotomy between indie and AAA is not as sharp as it looks from the outside. We interact with a lot of AAA developers, and we talk with them, and we talk about the same problems. The same things. There's just the business side of it completely changes.
The reality is we have to be more visible. We have to create this. We have to make stories about ourselves. Basically, we have to show off a lot, and that's kind of why we perhaps seem more individual and more out there because we have to put ourselves out there. But yeah, I think there's a danger in us assuming that indie is the coolest way or the better way, which I know you weren't saying, but I think there's that. And to actually answer your question, in terms of hard times, I don't know. I work ridiculous hours, but I find it very hard to complain because I'm paid well to do the thing I love. I'm very, very lucky.
I mean, there are issues that any creative will run into, and especially in the indie scene, it's hard to keep track of certain things. I mean, I know of a lot of things that happen in this field, I think, are creative problems, are things like imposter syndrome, where somebody will be working on a game and feel like a fraud internally. Like, why are people liking this game so much?
By the way, that's every good creative I've ever met
exactly.
has that exact mindset.
It's trying to balance your personal life and your work, because you work on this thing you love, and you feel personally attached to it. You feel as if it's part of your identity at some point. But then you also have a life. I mean, I had a point in my life where I had to step back, and that happened when I was talking to my mother a while ago, and she asked me something, and I went, I need to answer this email for like 5 minutes, and I'll be with you in like 5 minutes. And I realized that's not a way you talk to your mother. That's and it's just like you get so stuck in this reality of work at points that you just need to take that step back and realize that you've become a giant jerk. And that happens. I mean, this is because you care about this. Like, this is an actual big part of your life. It's something that you've poured everything into. It's how people know you. A lot of people know you as, know Mike as Mike Biddle, who made Thomas Was Alone, and me as Rami, one half of Lambeer. And we have to balance those like identities with our sort of personal friend.
Yeah, and we're out there in public with that personality. So you know, if we have a bad day,
that's
then
going to
that's
reflect
hard
on us.
because we go on Twitter and I do it far too much, moan.
Yeah, because you're effectively, you know, you make yourself a kind of brand. You're not part of an identity as a studio in the way Ed is. You know, sometimes you can become perhaps too close to it all. I mean, Phil Fish recently, you know, he's a creative guy who talks quite freely, and he got, you know, attacked on Twitter or wherever because you're that much closer to your audience now, and he, you know, he got too close perhaps, and he got burned out by that.
It's sort of a perfect storm in that you're never off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And social media, and also people are so passionate, sometimes in entirely unhinged and inappropriate ways.
Yes.
And there's a weird sense, and we see this, I mean, it's one of the most frustrating and most interesting things about games is the cultural politics going through. And a big response, I mean, this is nothing new, it seems self-evident, that for a while, being into games was quite a difficult, nerdy thing to do, and there was that kind of under siege mentality of, hey, we nerds, we've got our own thing. And now we're not. We're absolutely at the centre of culture. If you go out on the game floor now, it's like, that's what Britain looks like. That's not what gamers look. You know, that's a meaningless tag. It's like, but these are gamers, and some people are only interested in COD or only interested in FIFA. That's just a culture. There is no other internet forum where I read what 14-year-olds think about feminism. You know, that's just except on game posts. And
so
glass half empty. Oh my God, this is incredibly depressing. Who brought them up to feel that way? On the other way, oh, look, here's the one opportunity I get to talk to these people and go, well, actually, what's going on? And I think that the standard reaction to a lot of the stuff that's been going on the last year, Twitter's been a great amplifier and accelerator of this, is stop bringing politics into this. And it's like there is no more purely political act than saying what is or is not politics. How dare you suggest that there should be politics about this? You're not allowed to talk about that. Just think that through. It's a self-refuting situation. And no one has ever said, you're not allowed to love the thing you love with the people you already enjoy playing it with. It's just a hilariously over-defensive reaction to stuff.
I think that's a sort of a weird thing about gaming culture anyway, is that a lot of it is overtly passionate, I think.
Yeah.
It's weird. I feel bad saying this as someone who works for Eurogamer, but I really despise the term gamer because I think it's unnecessarily territorial. It's like you don't get filmers, you don't get bookers, you get people who read and people who watch films and people who play games. Yeah. And the term gamer just seems unnecessarily kind of reductive, and you kind of putting up a wall and saying who's a gamer, who's not a gamer, and it's kind of unnecessary.
You're doing it wrong.
I give talks at cultural institutes every now and then, museums and art shows, and I've stopped asking who's a gamer. I started asking who plays games, and that's such a different because when you ask who's a gamer, 3 people will raise their hand and they'll look sort of embarrassed about it in the crowd they're in. If you ask who plays video games, like did anybody ever play solitaire? Like during work, like everybody raises their hand because that's
it's a transient state being a gamer rather than it's not an identity.
Are you a pedestrian? Have you ever been a pedestrian?
But if you're,
are you going to be a pedestrian later on today?
Are you a reader, Mike Biddle?
You're not a booker, but you are a reader. You're temporarily a reader at the point where you're reading a book. So it would not be weird for an author, and an author often does in the more pretentious books, dear reader, or the talks to you directly.
It'd be better if they called them Dear Booker.
Dear Booker, I like that. But do you see what I mean? It's the game. I think the gamer tag could be reclaimed.
Oh my God, that's what Bioshock Infinite's all about.
Now we finally know. No, but I mean, it's interesting because I think gamer culture started out as obviously sort of it's an excluded group of people. That it was an excluded group of people, and it is a highly competitive medium. It used to be a highly competitive medium. So I think a lot of our gamer culture nowadays just stems from that origin of being...
Like, I hate the term when people say, like, I beat that game. It's like, oh, you just played it. You didn't beat it.
I recently beat Middlemarch by George Eliot. Completely. I got through to the final boss. I beat it. I owned it. Achievement unlocked.
So gaming culture is a bit like, it's a unique thing. And I think for us as indie developers, it's also a thing that we sort of need to figure out. And I think A lot of people do, a lot of people don't. I think the whole thing with Phil Fish was like an awful thing that happened.
The problem with what happened to Phil and what happens to a lesser extent to all indies get sent rubbish from fanboys.
What kind of rubbish have you been?
Oh, I've never had it that bad, but I am
I've had some
massively biased for and against Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, according to the internet. I get attacked constantly for that, but yeah, no. But basically, I think what the problem is the relationship is very strange for two reasons. One, Twitter specifically creates I think it's an illusion, the illusion of an equal relationship in the sense that we're two people having a conversation. But what people don't have the visibility on is if you're someone like Phil with a ridiculous number of followers, he's one person having multiple little conversations. And if enough of those conversations are negative, then actually he's just a guy standing in the middle of the room with 100 people shouting at him. And you can't see that on Twitter.
And it's a weird egotism. I still get it. Like when I ring someone, I still have this, just on the phone, I still have this weird image of them with their legs crossed on their desk, waiting for my call. Just poised to spring into action and satisfy me. Like that's not how it is when people ring me at work. I've got 9 different things going on. But that's the illusion on Twitter is, well, you've been in my timeline, I'm now replying back to you. And the number of times I've seen, good Lord, Graham Linehan, Glinner on Twitter. Occasionally I had people saying, cool, that was a bit intemperate of a reply. And it's like, you see what his timeline is like, and it's just this blizzard of shit.
You never know if you're the 100th person to say something to someone. I've had it before where I've had, and I'm not proud of it, but I've had days where, I don't know, a story about me or my games has been in the press, and I've had a lot of negative stuff. Yeah. And I'll have received like 50 really snarky, horrible things. And then one person will send me a message, which is not really snarky, but can be misread as snarky. And that's been the person who I've gone, oh, dude, go away. And I've immediately realized the situation and felt very bad. But it's very hard. It's very hard.
I remember in the discussion after the whole Phil thing went down, I remember people saying that he should just grow thicker skin. Well, that guy had a skin as thick as this building. And
not an infinitely thick skin. That's the only possible solution to this problem, isn't it?
But not an infinitely thick skin. Yeah. I mean, at some point, that's going to wear you down. And I think the interesting thing is that Twitter is like putting ourselves out there is both this super wonderful thing and this super destructive thing because it goes both ways. Like for every
so
we've all benefited massively from it.
Yeah, obviously.
Like we heard about potentially it can be horrible. Phil Fish, being abused on Twitter and having enough and walking away. But let's talk about some of your proudest moments. So when does it pay off, as an independent developer, what are the moments that you remember as standing out in your head as like, that was like the best day of my working life, perhaps?
Oh, I know that one.
I've got one. I've had several at Eurogamer. It's been awesome this year because every tweet I've made during the entire thing, someone has responded to. I asked for a phone charger earlier, and 5 people showed up with phone chargers. I do every couple of years, and it's going quite well so far.
Somebody somebody wipe my arse. I can't be bothered.
I mentioned I was thirsty, and I had a beer in my hand within about half an hour the other day. It's awesome. People are awesome. And generally, the nicest...
Could you do a tweet now, live on stage?
I can't because my phone ran out of battery because I tweeted too much asking for stuff. But no, it's cool. I'm very fortunate in that I'm not going to call them fans, but there's enough cool people who like what I do enough that I feel like I've just got this lovely wall of nice, friendly people behind me looking after me.
Yeah,
and then a few people who I could do without.
But that's often how it feels. I mean, that's how I feel about the Flambeer fans. Exactly the same. They're people that like what we do or that like us. And since we make things we like, if they like us, they'll like what we make. That's
I think that's the thing with Twitter. Anyway.
It feels
like you've got to focus on those people. Like when you're saying about comparing negative and positive, what you get. I guess if you're Phil Fish and you've got hundreds of people contacting you at one point in time, that's really hard to deal with. But maybe for someone like us that's getting a lot less attention, I guess, because we're less known, you just have to focus on the people that tweet you and go, hey, that looks really great, or I just watched the video, that looks awesome. They're the people you're going to engage with and be like, oh, thanks, have more stuff, let's have a chat.
Well, could I ask all of you do you have a sense of an audience? Because I've been in the industry for 11 years. I have never had less of an idea who I'm making games for.
So I have a really clear view of our audience. Our audience is me and JW. If we like what we make, we're making we're like, it's not even that we have to like the game that we're making, we have to like making the game that we're making. That's sort of what we do. So our audience is sort of us, and we're just amusing ourselves making a game, and then we know that if we like it, the people that like us will like that game.
But when you get like, someone just sounding off on the forum, I mean, for you, the Eurogamer guys, presumably it's the same thing like, we're writing for these guys? Like, and there's no, but is there a sense of...
I actually literally tweeted something like that a while ago, you know that? When there was this huge... was that after Grand Theft Auto 5, like the argument?
The GameSpot.
Yeah, the
comments,
GameSpot comments. Somebody got completely destroyed. A writer, she had written a review about Grand Theft Auto 5. And
I'll give it 9 out of 10 and
she
still
gave
got
it a
10.
9 out of 10.
Because
what horrible
because
woman.
of the 3 characters, I think, was the thing that
she wrote a glowing review. She's a massive GTA fan and has been for 10 years. She's like the biggest GTA fan ever. She wrote an enormous review, and I think there were 2 sentences where she said, "Oh, by the way, there's this slightly misogynist angle to it. It doesn't really matter to me playing the game, but I can imagine someone bother it."
And then the comments were just like this pile of like.
But wasn't there some like a verbatim comment like, "This is why there's no point getting women to review games."
It's the classic
By the
quote.
way, games culture has no problem with misogyny.
This is the classic quote: "Is the comments on any article about feminism prove the need for feminism?" That's the kind of the go-to quote. But it wasn't even an article about feminism. It was an article about how cool GTA was.
So the interest, like at points like that, I just think like I don't know why I'm making games for
but
gamers.
does one of those, all it takes is one shouty madman, and it's like, that's...
No, but this is not, like, if it were...
negative part of, like, we have good commenters and we have bad commenters, and the comments are just one tiny part, and you can't... That's not indicative of the audience as a whole.
We've got some of them in the audience here, Martin, so...
Yeah, so there might be someone in the audience who's really horrible in comments.
Statistically, you are horrible.
Yeah.
And you're just going to go along with him. You're all right, and you're intimidated because they posted first.
And you're all going to quote the original message and just continue the problem.
At that point, I really felt like, why am I even making games for these people? And then I realized that that's not what I'm doing. What I'm making games for are the people that the people that I interact with, and those are all wonderful people.
Yeah, and if some of those horrible people want to give us 50p in a humble bundle every now and again, that's fine.
The internet cops can have that horrible effect, but I hope like the expo's proven that people, the audience is lovely. The people here have been absolutely amazing at the expo. Yeah, and
I think every site has a few nasty commenters, and I think generally they're all. If you look at the ratios, generally the ratio's pretty.
Could I put in a request? I'd like there to be an industry standard thing, so it's not just an individual website. I'd like there to be an award that you can give a comment, which is yes, that is the appropriate level. Like, we announced something, we put some thumbs up.
I somewhat agree with that.
And there was a whole swing of, this is awesome, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And the other was, you just screwed up everything, it's going to be terrible. And someone said, well, this looks like it might be interesting. It's like, that is exactly how much information you've actually been given. And I really wanted to just award that, like, yes, you are doing the internet well. Yeah. Congratulations.
There should be a +1, a -1, and stay the same.
I mean, but this is an interesting thing about internet. It's an interesting...
Life's a BioWare game.
It's an interesting thing about the internet, though, because if you look at Popular Science, they just turned off their comment section a week ago. They were like, done. We're done with this stuff. We're not going to do comments anymore because it just skews the opinion. It skews the perception of an article so much that we just don't want to deal with it.
I think talking of the audience and comments, I think we can open it up to the audience now and maybe get some of these comments.
Who thinks we should have audience participation? No, sorry, no.
So I've got some XXL T-shirts. It's the only size left to give. They come up small to give to people who ask questions. So there's a massive incentive. And we've got one microphone. So. Yeah, you already know what to do. So we've got loads of questions down here. Let's take this guy.
Hello.
Okay. This was surprisingly much about internet.
This guy likes merch. What can we sell him?
He has a Minecraft hat.
He does have Minecraft.
Can you pull the beanie all the way down and do it?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Do you have to do the whole question with the hat down? Okay.
Nice, do it.
What did you guys think of...
That's significantly more sinister than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, you've done it now.
We're being talked to by a creeper.
Sorry, think of...
But you are now my favourite moment from all of Eurogamer, just so you know.
What did you guys think of Indie Game the movie? Because we watched it in our college class I think it was last year, whenever it came out. And I saw people later saying that people were just like ragging on Phil Fish and John Blow. because Phil Fish just made himself look like an idiot or something because he was so into his game. Do you think that's like an appropriate response? And what did you think of the whole thing?
Do you want to take this one?
I'm in the credits of that movie twice, so take that as sort of an indicator of how much I think that movie is a good thing. I think Indie Game the Movie is a really, really important movie. I think the response to Phil Fish in that movie is also just like people feel like watching that movie, they feel like they know Phil, but that is Phil in the most stressful period of his life ever. And
who's going to look good in that context?
And if you would be any better human in that exact same situation, where the past 5 years of your life are basically at stake at any given moment, it can fall apart at any given moment. He talks about a relationship breaking up, like just recently before the movie. He talks about all that stuff that's going wrong in his life. He's dealing with work-life balance. He's dealing with that he doesn't know whether the game is good. He's dealing with all this. And yes, he snaps at a few moments at a conference where there are, what was it? It was packed. So 70,000 people are going to be there potentially checking out his game, and he doesn't know whether it's going to break or not. If you could be any better human being that Phil was at that moment, I applaud you, because I've had a game break down at a conference once, twice.
3 times?
Actually thrice.
What was it?
I've had games break down, and you just lose it. I mean, this is something even though I go to a lot of conferences all the time, every single one, you know that this is your one moment to make an impression. And for Phil, this wasn't just the one moment to make an impression. This was the big blow. And
there was a film crew pointing a camera in his face. It's like this is the thing: is if you want indies visible, you have to. To an extent, you have to accept that we're not going to sugarcoat it. When you see a lot of kind of leading industry veterans, they have 4 PR guys just off camera, making sure they're not, representing themselves.
Waving their hands.
Yeah, and that's cool.
No, go the other way with this conversation.
And that's a really smart approach, as Phil has found out. But it's also going to stop you from getting the experience you want. I actually cried watching Indie Game the Movie because it's so true in so many places. Like, it is, like all documentaries, it's constructed to tell a story and blah, 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 and never believe actual truth, because for lots of reasons. Do a history A level. It is full of moments. The launch of Super Meat Boy was spot on. Like, I didn't launch on Xbox Live Arcade, but it was so many points. The moment where I realized that Steam hadn't put up the trailer for the game on the first day.
You lose your shit.
And I was just, I didn't know what was going to happen, because obviously you make most of a lot of the sales on the first day. And it tore me apart, that event. And likewise, many other things. The whole browsing, people laugh at them for, I think it was Jonathan Blow, for
that was the
moment
moment I lost it in that movie. Like when Edmund was not happy about the launch, and he was just sort of like, we did it. And then he watched the movie and he started laughing, like, I just lost my shit.
Yeah, and I have had Let's Players now, that's that's the thing. I remember the moment I saw a video of someone playing it with Thomas with their mum, and their mum wasn't getting the controls, and they were shouting at their mother, who was just really glad to be there. And it was the loveliest moment of it. They do a series of videos of the game, and every one of them ends with the kid slamming the laptop shut in anger at how bad his mum is at the game, and it's brilliant. But no, there's a lot of moments of truth in that movie, and a lot of moments where I totally could see things that happen to me. So I think I do think it's a realistic depiction of indie game development, as much as you can do in an hour and a half.
So yes and no. I think the thing that the movie gets really right is what it's like to develop a game. I think that the one thing they sort of didn't touch on, which I think is interesting, and I think another documentary from Australia, Game Loading, is touching on that a lot, is the community.
Yes.
The community of developers, the other developers that are out there.
The fact that we all talk and know each other. That's a good point, because they told them as if they were 3 little islands, didn't they?
But they were actually talking a lot. Course, I mean, if you look at the launch moment of Super Meat Boy, Danny Baranowski actually reaches out to Ed saying, like, I've got sales numbers for this game. So a lot of indie is actually community. I think that is a really important thing to realize, is that a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do would not be possible without people like Mike, without Mike. And a lot of what he does wouldn't be possible without everybody here.
I could do it all alone. No, I'm joking.
That's why it's called Thomas Was Alone.
Mike
is a really lonely person.
I'm actually a horrible person.
Nobody
very
actually
good at lying
likes
on
Mike.
Twitter. I have no friends.
All right, well, thank you. We've got time for one.
That's such a good moment to just quit this
That's a good question.
We've only got time for one more. We've got to go to this guy at the back. There's a microphone on the way.
Yeah, this is a question to the gentleman with the volume T-shirt. You sort of said about Twitter and about getting 50 or 60 negative comments on the back. I mean, I work in the hotel and leisure industry. All I deal
I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, sick burn.
No. What I'm trying to say is I deal with complaints all day. That is my job.
Yeah.
I never get it. I'm very rare that I get a customer come with a very positive comment. You know. Now, simple fact is, if I snapped, I'd get fired. Do you feel that it's appropriate because you're in the public eye, and obviously, yeah, fair enough, you might deal with a lot more negative comments than I do, that you're entitled to snap?
I think
you're entitled to snap.
There's multiple layers to what you're saying. So first of all, I'm not entitled to anything. That's not. I'm not a perfect person. I agree with what Rami said. It's everyone's entitled to snap. I would also say the relationship's slightly different because when you're working at your hotel, even though the attacks you're receiving, I imagine people would make things personal. They are not personal. They're attacking you because the hotel sucks. When someone lays into me, they're talking about me sucking, and there's an emotional difference there. Now, whether or not that's the most mature, that obviously rise above and be heroic and have a thick skin, all apply. But it's not true. No, you don't think? No.
I mean,
I was trying to be nice, and you do the actual answer.
No. We're like, this is a human being thing. Like, if 50 people attack you for something, I mean, in your case, I don't know, is it your hotel? Is it a hotel you work for? Sorry?
I actually work in a restaurant.
Oh,
it's actually a restaurant.
Okay.
But I still take it personally when someone complains about something, because as a manager of that restaurant,
Right.
it is my job to make everything perfect for everyone.
Exactly.
Yep.
But you don't get. But presumably you like. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But it's and also I would say volume is a big issue here. Do you really get 100 people telling you you're a dick every day?
No, I appreciate that it's not a thing, but what my point was is for as many negative comments you get a day, you must get positive comments.
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
but
of course.
they're not.
What I'm saying is,
here's the thing. I can tell you,
getting a positive comment is a rarity.
It's not a plus minus one thing. It's
exactly.
Not, it's not. They're not equitable. It's not.
It's like if I tell you you're awesome all day, and at the end of this day, just go, I think you're the biggest jerk of the day.
Well, you haven't tasted his food yet.
No. This is the thing. This doesn't have to be related to our games. It can be related to something I said about, not supporting Android.
Yeah.
Like
never mentioned.
You said what? Yeah.
Exactly. Like ridiculous fishing is not on Android, and sometimes I respond to questions about that. And it's got no. I think Android is a bit of a minefield to develop for. That's something I feel. That's genuinely how I feel. I think Android is almost dangerous to develop for at times. So when I say that, I mean that as in this is my opinion of that. And then I get it, like my Twitter, I just turn off Twitter for an hour. Because that just means I get shit on for...
I guess this is this is a general issue, is how much attention you pay to feedback in whatever form it is. And there's sometimes you just think, well, this is just abuse. This is effectively a dog barking or a car alarm going off at night. There's nothing I can take from this. Or stuff in feedback forums. Like there are times, I think the rule of thumb I've got is people are never wrong about their emotions, but they're hardly ever right about what's caused it. And some of the explanations are
that's true.
hilariously unicausal. Like, it's because of this, and this is all... It's like, well, okay, I see what you're thinking about that, but I know for a fact... Oh, like, for example, sorry, to mention something I'm working on at the moment, we've got a first-person shooter, and we're trying to balance stuff, we're putting in new weapons and characters, and we're looking at the feedback forums. And it's unique in my experience in that the people who are playing the game understand shooters to such a granular level. They are actually saying... it seems to me that the shotgun is underpowered, but that could be as a result of a number... Like, they're actually saying, well, is this overall health? Like, they're not just going, you've just nerfed all the guns. So that's the standard comment is, this is a joke, I'm never doing this again, I'm going to continue to post on your forum every day, but I'm never going to play this game again.
I'm leaving.
You've ruined the internet for me.
I think that's feedback 101, is when people say the shotgun is underpowered, they might actually mean that the enemies in this section are overpowered.
Yeah,
like, there's
then they're right that they feel there's a problem, but they're hardly ever right about the cause.
But let's
of
be
it.
clear, though. There's a very big difference between the guns wrong, or the
and a restaurant
or in
violent
Call of Duty,
threats.
the gun's wrong, and you nerf that by like 0.25%, and the internet loses its shit and
But
calls
yeah,
for death
that's
threats.
my point. Is if anyone ever wants to tweet me, it's going to result in I'm going to get 100 tweets. If anyone ever wants to tweet me saying Thomas Was Alone is shit, that's okay.
Hashtag.
Hashtag.
Thomas Was Alone was shit. It's now a hashtag, people.
But when people send me threats on my family,
which happens.
that's different. That's a different, and there's only, it's very hard sometimes to actually have the thick skin. So I take your point, by the way, gentleman asked in the original question. Yes, there is a certain degree of who is this entitled bastard who has his dream job, has lots of people saying he's awesome all the time, to get a little bit annoyed if someone's a bit rude to him on the internet. And I totally am with you on that. I think it's all about scale. I'm fine. I get crap, but I get crap I can deal with, and I rarely, go to bed at night upset because someone was mean to me. That very, very rare. I think it's happened twice. But I'm very fortunate. There are others for whom the scales are tipped in a very different way, and I feel for that.
I mean, it's also, it's just that I don't know if I agree with you. Honestly,
you rarely do, in fairness.
I don't see how any of this is an acceptable standard of society, that we can just go and like leave 50 comments on something that somebody is, it's not actually shit, right? If somebody does something bad, by all means, like tell them it's bad. But we're talking about somebody that has never ever played a game, that just like completely demolishes something because they think the art style is not cool.
For me, the issue is it's so easy to just ignore stuff. Because you just think, that's not...
Think?
Well,
I think it's easy to ignore game
because if it is just effectively, you just go, okay, you're a crazy person, and move on. They could be right. They're putting it in a vile way.
Again, that's why I'm saying the distinction. Fair enough. Some people will send me messages saying my game's bad, and they'll say because of this, and you think, oh my god, you're absolutely right.
Those are the killers.
And then some people will send me messages going, being a bit rude and saying, oh yeah, I think your game's overrated, and you think, fair enough, I think your tweet's overrated, or some other hilarious comeback.
Hours later.
Oh yeah. But my point is we need to be very careful to not conflate that with abuse. Yeah. And like I say, I very rarely have anything like that. But many, Phil being a very obvious example, get that. And from Phil's sins were that he isn't a big fan of Japanese games. And
which is valid.
You can not like things in the universe. I'm sorry.
What? You've threatened my entire being.
And actually, arguably, that's been turned into something it wasn't anyway. If you go back and watch the original video, and for that, the man got threatened and death threats.
I
and
think the moral of the story should be nice to indie developers and video
be
game
nice to
as well,
people.
Yes, there's nothing special about indie
Let's all
developers.
love each other.
What just happened?
I said something very
I'm
obvious.
sorry that
Mike was profound.
Really is all we have time for. Thank you first to all of you for coming and for coming to the expo. I hope you've had a lovely time, and I hope you write nice things on Twitter about it.
Please use hashtag Thomas Was Alone as shit.
Like seriously, there'll be 50 by the time I get home.
Please be 50 by the time he gets home.
Yeah, we can do this, people. Come on.
And thank you to Ed, to Rami, to Mike, to John, to Wesley, to Martin, to Bertie. I'm talking to myself. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Hopefully see you next year.
Hooray!